Well, Happy New Year, everyone, at Don't Die Rusty Nation. I hope everybody had the best holiday season. I hope you had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I am excited to start the new year off. And our first guest will be Janet Grove from Progressive Therapy Associates. And Janet grew up in my hometown of Ree Heights, South Dakota, and we talk about brain health, brain therapy, just all kinds of brain stuff. Actually, we talked for an hour about brain stuff, and we'll probably talk a little bit more here in a few more episodes because there's one thing that I've wanted to learn about is brain health. As we grow older, especially growing older, I want to know how to keep my mind and brain functioning at the highest output it can. I want to do the best I can to keep it going. So it interests me. And Janet had so many, uh, gave me many thoughts and advice in this conversation that we had. And we talked a little bit about growing up in Ree Heights. We talked a little bit about her family. We talked about brain health. And we talked about just all kinds of cool stuff. And I hope you enjoy this next conversation that we had because I really enjoyed learning about brain health. I hope you had a Happy New Year and a Merry Christmas. And I hope that you enjoy this next episode of the Don't Die Rusty podcast. So keep chasing your dreams, being the best you. Don't die rusty. And enjoy this next episode with Janet Grove. Well, hello, Don't Die Rusty Nation. I am lucky enough to have Janet Grove here. I could tell her things about her brother Pete that she probably already knows or would suspect. I grew up playing softball with her brother, but which was kind of interesting and fun in itself. But Janet is Janet has Progressive Therapy Associates, and it's about. Well, I'm going to let you explain it more than I can because I will probably stumble and bumble, and I don't want to do that to you, Janet. But I thank you for being on. She's also from my hometown of Ree Heights, South Dakota, and her hometown. So it's awesome to have people from our hometowns that are successful, and I thank you so much, Janet.
Thank you so much for having me on, Rick. This is a great opportunity. I couldn't be more proud to be from Ree Heights. Lots of great people there, including my older brother Pete that you mentioned, right? I grew up in Ree Heights, South Dakota. I have four brothers, and my parents and family are still there, or most of them are still there. And, that sort of catapulted me into the field I'm in now, without a doubt. Especially, I would say my hero and my youngest brother, Clayton Wordle, who had kind of a wild ride coming into the world. So I became a speech pathologist probably before I had a degree in speech language pathology. Because with his communication difficulties and physical needs, having cerebral palsy, I was his interpreter from very early on, right? And he has always been a brilliant young man with lots of things to share. And so certainly that made me very interested in, the brain and communication, and how does that not just impact someone in the four walls of a therapy office, but in their life and in, day-to-day world, and how they enjoy their day in and day out. And so that's part of why I started Progressive Therapy Associates here in Fargo, North Dakota, 15 years ago now, and been in the field, I think it's 27 or so years now, and, have the opportunity to work with a lot of people that, well, the brain is the main station. So working with lots of people,
Hmm.
there's been some concerns about how their brain is working. And yeah, we're honored to be able to help them every day at our clinic.
So, I mean, it's interesting because when I was studying up in a little bit, you have a lot of different things you work on, like ADHD, brain injuries, concussions, and traumatic brain injuries, strokes, MS, mild autism. I mean, that's a broad spectrum of brain things that you work with.
Yeah, it really is. Never a dull moment and incredibly rewarding. I think as speech language pathologists, most of the time, we hear often in our office, my speech is fine. And it's just confusing, I think, the work that we do because our job is really from the neck up. So it includes swallowing and speech and communication and thinking skills. And we've decided to really specialize in the thinking skills part of it. So attention and memory and executive functioning. So taking what someone knows and being able to plug that into day-to-day life, yeah, to do the things they need to make their life go as well as it can.
And I liked how you said you don't what was it? I have to now I didn't write it down, but it's you don't create a plan for them. You work together to create the plan for them, with them. It's not for them, it's with them. That's what it was. And in I in today's day and age, I respect that totally because I've went through for me for I think that the medical profession has lost some of that. That's why I've gone to functional medicine. So they create one with you, not for you. They don't tell you. They get to know who you are, and that's. I watched your video. If you get a chance, people, you should go to Progressive Therapy Associates and watch the video of you did with that lady. Did she get kicked? Or the
She basically, you probably saw that on our Progressive Therapy
Yep.
Associates webpage. She basically, worked farming and ranching and was in a pen and got knocked down. And this cow just banged her around repeatedly against this fence. And she's really lucky to have survived how significantly she was injured, just repeated hits to her head, and worked really hard, feisty, neat gal. And one of the things that the people I get to work with routinely know is, I do really care about them, but I'm going to push them hard to be their best selves. And so I'm not doing them any favors if I'm not honest with them, if I'm not, you know, really locking elbows and let's work hard together on this. And, I have had some over time where, oh, I thought of you, Janet, when I was doing my homework and I was sort of frustrated but grateful. And they're like, I really
Yep.
haven't experienced this because they
Yep.
really know that, myself and colleagues here at our clinic are in their corner. We're working hard and we want those successes as badly as they do. And I'll really tell you, Rick, that started early in my life. I think about all the trials and tribulations with my brother Clayton as an
Yeah. Yeah.
example. He could have plenty of reasons to be upset or be poor me or be, I mean, the list could be long. And he makes a conscious decision majority of days to be incredibly grateful and work hard and be thankful for what he can do. And he's a good reminder to me on a day-to-day
Hmm.
basis. And I think about, yeah, just you think about that and know how those needs impact you, like I said, across environments. And so, yeah, we're really able to help people with changes to their brain. And that might be like a motor vehicle accident, or maybe they've fallen on the ice, or maybe like this woman you brought up was just doing her work taking care of cattle and got just overhauled and sustained, a brain injury in that process too. But knowing that your hard work and your brain recovering is something that, yeah, you can work together on and really be your best self is pretty empowering. It's pretty neat to be part of that process.
Well, it's very cool I will say, I mean, I'm not around Clayton all the time, but I do see you guys see him when he goes out or this and that. And when you're out somewhere and you see Clayton and he seems to be always happy when you see him, I mean,
Yeah.
I know everybody has bad days and this and that, but uh I do have a question though. Have you found his Fulton Ranch coat yet?
You know, ironically, right before I came on with you, I got a message from my mom saying, post that the missing goat has been found. So, yes, I don't know if it was shared, 85 or 100 times or whatever, but the word was out and it has turned up, Rick. So,
Well, well, those are things, and this is totally off of all the subjects, but those are things that people cherish, and if
yeah,
that coat he cherished, or really liked, and I thought
yeah,
there are things in our lives that people might not think are as important to them, but they are important to us.
right.
And and that coat came up, and I thought, if there had to be a search for whoever had that or whatever happened to it or whatever, but that is cool that it
Yeah,
showed back up.
yeah.
Y-
Literally 2 minutes to when I came on with you, I got a text message from mom. She's like, okay, post that it's been found. Okay, we've done it. It takes a village, Rick.
It does take a village, and it's interesting. It's really interesting to me. The like when you say it takes a village, it's coming from a small community that we came from. I think so many more people are like patient, we'll say, or they understand, and I just see a close-knit community in the places we came from. It's just interesting. And then, like I said, I got to hang out with your brother when we were younger. Now we're old and older. But it was so fun in those days, and then learning, and I knew who you were, but you're younger than us. But wherever you go, and you have somebody from Ree Heights, they'll always help somebody. That's what I reckon.
Absolutely.
Somewhere, somebody knows somebody. So,
Yeah.
so that's really, really cool. But
Yeah, and I would say with the patients that I'm working with and their families, that was an interesting, y- something but you see it from a whole different perspective. For instance, I live in Fargo, which is obviously a much larger community than Ree Heights and Miller. Um, but there can be this somebody else will do it, or someone else will, employ this individual, or someone else will help them volunteer. Because I'll see a lot of people that are working full time have this injury and their life sort of comes to a screeching halt. And then one step at a time, you're trying to get back to their best quality of life. And it might mean that same job. It might not. It might mean something in between, or there might be lots of steps to getting back to that level of independence, or the greatest level of independence we can. Um, but there might not be this like, oh, well, yeah, they could volunteer here in between, because there isn't that, oh, yeah, that's right. That's Pete's little brother, or that's,
yeah, yeah,
I mean, it's just a different, there's something about a small community that you just can't duplicate. And I'll tell you this story, which has everything and nothing to do with my practice at the same time, right? So my husband Brent and I, and our kids were home we'd come home, and of course, when we're coming from Fargo, we leave after work, and it's late by the time we get to the farm. And I'd said the next morning, because Clayton works a couple jobs in town, and he is at the Blatchford house during the week and home on the farm on the weekend, and I said, well, I'd like to go, you know, Brett and I'll go pick him up. And because we were all going to be home for Christmas. And so it had snowed, fresh snow, and it's fairly deep. And we pull up to to get him, and I just see, this power chair, I mean, just going down the alley, and the snow is just rolling in every direction. And my husband Brent goes, "Well, that's Clayton." And I'm like, "Yep, it is. No mistaking that it's him." And so we stop because we're not at the Blatchford house yet, and he stops his chair, and then I hear him just laugh, and then he just keeps on going. Well, I get out of the vehicle and follow him. Well, he was going to the bank to deposit his paycheck before going home. So he goes by himself in his power chair, pulls in to the bank. His chair is just loaded with snow. They dry it off at the bank. They know his check is going to be on this side, this many layers deep. And I come in and they're sort of like, I've been gone long enough that they're like, he doesn't come with someone to the bank to deposit his check. Who, Clayton, of course, thinks that's hilarious that they're giving me the nth degree over this. But when you look at someone who doesn't speak like you or I do, but certainly
Hmm.
communicates and is able to take their power chair, go to the bank, deposit their check that they work hard for, that's the why,
Yeah.
right? That's the why. I couldn't have been more proud to see that. And of course, he thought he was hilarious because he left me in the dust and, well, not in the dust, in the snow.
Yeah.
Um, but that level of independence, that kind of can do. And no two people we see are returning to the same level of functioning. No
Hmm.
two people's injuries are the same. No two people started out with the same brain. And so, really diving in, and I always tell people, hey, I'm going to have to really get up in your business in order to be able to help you. Right. And you can
Hmm.
tell me fibs, but I'll know.
Hmm.
So let's be really open and honest here. If you're like, hey, Janet, why in the heck are you having me do this anyway? I would expect you to ask me that. So it is really this very open, honest, what are the changes to your brain? How do we address those? And of course, there's a lot of science to it, right? The
Yeah.
neuroscience piece of it and what we know now versus what we knew a year ago and 20 years ago just is exponentially better. But it really comes down to don't forget um, each individual is an expert on their own brain, and their family and loved ones know them better than you do. So listen.
Yep. In I've listened to a podcast with Jim Quick, and he talked about when he fell on the his heater grate, and his brain in was it changed his life, and they thought he was slow, and he wasn't slow. It's just that he learned differently.
Yeah,
When I got done listening to that, you just got to realize that different people think differently. Because everybody is an individual. Like,
yeah,
you know, uh, and I was just talking to one of my coworkers this morning about, they said, I went down to the Florida Keys because I have a friend that's sailing around the world, and I said, everybody, you know, here's my deal on sailing, that kind of stuff is I'm not a water person, but I went down there. I figure if I crash into the ocean, I would be fish food. I don't want to be in a life jacket being a worm on a hook wondering what's going to nibble on me. And that's just me. I love the mountains. I love the fresh air.
yep,
Now, I just about climbed Crow Peak to wave at you since you can see. I probably could see Fargo from here, but
right.
and just I'm just giving you heck. But no, everybody has a different brain, and this is what's been since I started listening to them. And I said, like, told you earlier, I listened to Mark Hyman and Huberman and stuff, but it's really interested me because as we grow older, that's when we start thinking of things like being cognitive and what's going to help our brains to maybe stay functioning at a more higher level instead of letting them go, and for me, and then some people, I mean, I don't know because I've never taken an ADHD test, and sometimes I am all over the board. But uh, what can help us? fix our brains, and
And
and what.
again, no two people are the same, but when you're looking at general brain health, people know that if they got in really good shape in their 20s and did nothing again until that would rapidly go downhill. But
Hmm.
yet we don't think about having to do things to keep our brain functioning well. That matters, right? And movement's medicine, period. And movement's not just medicine for our body. Our brain likes movement, right? And here's one thing I want to hit on that gets missed routinely. Sleep, right? That is our
Hmm.
best, or one of our very best fuel sources for our brain. And, routinely, including my own family members, I won't name any names, have needed to be strong armed into having, let's take a look at sleep. If you snore like a grizzly bear and you can be heard from a block away, you need somebody to take a look at that. Our brain likes oxygen, not just during the day, at night too. And so, we think about if you met somebody and they said, "Oh, well, I've never been to a dentist ever in my life," you would say, that's concerning, right? But
Yep.
if someone says they've never seen a sleep doctor, nobody thinks anything of that.
That's right.
Sleep is a huge part of brain health. And like I mentioned, if you snore like a grizzly bear, it would make sense to see sleep medicine. There's lots of things there that factor in and making sure that you're getting good sleep. If you're not getting REM sleep, as an example, that's the biggest, that's a huge implication for inflammation, right? We
Yep.
also clean our brain cleans itself at night. Obviously, it's much more complicated than that, but that's what impacts memory immensely, right? I think about a guy that I saw years ago. He comes to see me and he is like, "Janet, my memory is absolutely terrible. I'm fearful that I have dementia. Do I have Alzheimer's? Like, what is happening to me?" And I'm not sure why this was missed at several stops along the way, that it shouldn't have been missed, but it was. So I talked to this guy, and he happens to be an over the road truck driver, and he sleeps about 3 hours a night. Well, that might work a night or two or six or eight or 20, but it's not going to work ongoing, right? The longevity on that was why
Hmm.
his memory was tanking.
Hmm.
Um, Science tells us people that are chronically sleep deprived drive worse than the drunk driver. I mean, they've done the studies, the science tells us that. Who might argue it?
Yeah.
Sleep matters. So, movement is medicine. Sleep is a big important thing. We also have to do things that light up our frontal lobe, right, in a healthy way. And so, things we look forward to, things that are productive, things that we see value in, no matter what age we are. If I think there's no point in me whistling out of bed in the morning, because why would I? There's nothing to look forward to. I'm not making an impact on anything. Pretty soon I'm probably going to have a lot of trouble getting out of bed,
Yep.
right? So we need things to look forward to, and when we look at, there's so many components of that, right? Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, all of those happy chemicals that send the message to our brain that, hey, this is good. These are things I'm enjoying. These things matter to me. So staying connected, right? I mean, we need
Yeah.
to do and be connected with things that matter to us.
And and that's interesting because I try to put out every morning that it's a choice how you wake up, and I look forward to getting up and having that sunrise and having that fresh air walk that I do every morning.
Yeah,
And most of the stuff that I write is something that pops into my head because I've either read something that night before that stuck with me, and I
right,
just start thinking about it. But I do believe, I truly believe what you're saying, because I think you have a better life if you wake up and you have something to look forward to.
right,
Like,
right,
and it doesn't have to be work, or it doesn't have to, it has to be just that you're woke up and you're living, or whatever else you need.
right.
It's just to look at the positives that you're here. Not
Yeah,
when you wake up negative, that's how you're gonna lead your life.
right. And the thing is that happens if someone's had a stroke, as an example. And again, there's lots of different kinds of strokes, and no two people started out with the same brain, so I can't emphasize that piece of it enough. But if someone's had a stroke or they've had a traumatic brain injury, maybe they've had a motor vehicle accident and didn't even have loss of consciousness. You can have a brain injury without loss of consciousness.
Oh,
You
really?
can have a brain injury without a loss of consciousness. In fact, I don't have anyone I saw this week with post-concussive syndrome that
Hmm.
had a loss of consciousness.
Well, actually, that's interesting. I actually wrote this down too because I was thinking about this. I was thinking about two things now that you've got into like a concussion thing, but I was thinking about being on a ranch, like y the sleep part, when it's calving season, you're
Yeah,
burning candles at the both ends
right,
because especially heifers, you're checking every 2 hours or whatever, so you're getting lack of sleep.
right.
And then I'm looking at you're getting beat around sometimes, getting kicked, getting. I remember being a kid, and you know, I mean, it's before you were even born, probably, but I was working for Ted Jennings. We'd go around the country cutting calves and vaccinating in the spring, and I got uh, Greg Ellsworth and I were a team, and I got kicked in the head, knocked out. They drug me to the fence, and you can hear them talking. But I'm saying, then we got back up, and you go get that big calf again, and don't let it kick you in the head again. And you think about where I'm going with this is it was never thought of anything different, like
Absolutely.
the concussion. But what can it do to your head? Like a concussion, I talked to Jerry Norton a while ago about concussions and stuff, and hyperbaric chambers, but you don't think about when we were playing football, getting your bell rung. You didn't say anything in those days because you wanted to keep on playing and show you were tough.
Rick, I mean, maybe I even said this to you at one point. The first concussion I witnessed that was definitively a concussion, my brother Pete was playing football, go Miller Rustlers. Here he is. He was concussed to the point where he was so confused that he went to the wrong huddle. The guys on the other team, of course, were shoving him out of the huddle, and he, was trying to go back. Well, they sort of knew then, oh, well, he's, Wordle's a little confused here, something's going on. But it wasn't enough until I was trying some other goofy number that it was like, oh, well, maybe we should pull him off the field for a bit and just take a look at him at least, right? And
Yep.
I think the thing to keep in mind, most people, and I emphasize most for a reason, most people do recover fully from one concussion. There are certainly some people that one concussion leaves them with long-term impacts. The thing is, many people don't realize if they've sustained a concussion, let's say, especially this time of year, they slipped and fell on the ice, landed on their head, they have a terrible headache, they're nauseous, they don't feel very good, felt a little not like themselves, not sleeping very good, pretty grumpy, kind of those typical concussive symptoms, that person has a chemical cascade that takes place for 2 weeks following that you or I can't see.
Mm-hmm.
And so even, of course, I would recommend someone go in, and because sometimes people have a brain bleed from a concussion, and so a lot of times that imaging is clear. That doesn't mean you didn't sustain a brain injury,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because an MRI and a CT does not show you the damage at that cellular level. Many people that I'm seeing had a concussion 6 weeks ago, and then you dig in and it's the 9th confirmed concussion, and then you know them a little longer and you're like, nope, we can keep adding to that. Right? I think about
Yeah.
somebody I saw years ago. They're in my office and they mentioned a concussion that they recently had. Well, this person had scars from a halo, which means they broke their neck at one time,
Yep.
right? Well, let's just go with, if you had a motor vehicle accident that you hit your neck or head hard enough to break your neck, did you jar your brain?
Yeah.
Hard, yes, you did.
Yep.
And
Yep.
what we know is our brain doesn't just stay inside our skull right where it's supposed to be, right? There's this coup contra coup where it's banging around inside our jagged skull, which, by the way, our brain does not like that. It causes this tearing and shearing, which is where the damage is caused. And sometimes there's imaging that shows a bleed, or and other times that there's no signs of that concussion. But many accumulative concussions can cause even more damage than someone sometimes who's had a depressed skull fracture, as an example. So people can look fine and not necessarily be doing fine at all regarding attention and memory or brain health. So yeah, take good care of your brain, right? Like, make sure the sleep is lined up. Movement is medicine. Doing things to jog our brain. Reading or listening or learning new things, like listening to your podcast, right? That's a good brain jog for people.
I hope so.
To flex your brain and think differently, learn new things. Yeah.
When I talk to people like you, it might help their brains, but they listen to me. I don't know about that. But I have been doing what you said, because I used to burn the candle because I thought I could, at both ends, because I thought I could live on little sleep. So I'm trying to do things. And it's like, I'm getting up early, staying up late, just doing, and it's not, it's just that I thought I could do that. Then I've realized, after listening to those people and talking to more brain people, how important sleep is. And then I believe in the getting up, and I try to read every day something, a few chapters here and there of something, if not more. And then I take some supplements and stuff that are supposed to help your brain, and that stuff, and try to be, I also read, and we talked a little bit about that earlier, as being social, because you have to think. I mean, I like to be alone at times myself, because I do think, but social also helps the brain too, is what I've heard. So I try to be fairly social here and there. And then I have this podcast going on, so I get to talk to a lot of different people. So that keeps, and you get to think. And this is what's very interesting to me, because I get to talk to you and learn a little bit about myself. Because there was a point probably a year ago. There's two things going on, and I think I fixed some of my physical, like it was just functional. Like I went to the functional doctor and fixed my health in some manners, and but I just kept on couldn't think of a word that I knew, and it's right there, and you're trying to grab it, and then you start. My problem is then you start beating yourself up because you know that word, but you can't think of it, so you just get mad. But after I've been like taking some of the supplements, get up early in the morning, I mean, do my stuff, I feel that I'm getting better cognitively in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it
But
has an impact. There's a lot of trickle down. I want you to think about things as having a minimum effective dosage, right? And that's a term we usually use for medication, minimum effective dosage.
mm-hmm,
But it applies to sleep, it applies to movement, it applies to socializing, it applies to how much do we work, right? It
mm-hmm,
applies to, yeah, just, we'd always joke about my grandpa, Art Cowan, who, he had certain medications prescribed and he might just decide he just liked to take the yellow ones. And it's like, well, that's not how this works, right? So you don't get to
yeah,
just decide I'm going to exercise one Tuesday a month and that's going to do the trick, or I'm just going to
yeah,
read one Louis L'Amour book and now I'm set, right?
yeah,
It's a minimum effective dosage. So looking at, little and often plugging
mm-hmm,
in those things that jog your brain in a healthy way. And no two people are the same, right? Some people are going to never pick up a book in their entire life. That's just not going to be how they learn things. That's
yep,
okay. If that's not your thing, that's not your thing. But maybe you decide to, listen to a podcast, or maybe you listen to auditory books, or maybe you have a conversation with your wise neighbor, or maybe you sit in on a lecture at your church, or whatever. Jogging your brain is every bit as important as jogging your body. It's the main station, runs the whole show. And, what we consume, which is either what we hear, what we eat, what we see, those are all things we consume, that impacts our brain.
well, and that's another interesting thing because I also, since that time, have I'm an 80-20-90-10 person because I still go down and have ice cream and do that kind of stuff, but I've changed my diet to it's interesting, like more. I mean, I'm always going to be a meat eater, which is that's not the but I was eating a lot of different protest processed carbohydrates that you don't think about. And now I'm eating more good foods, whole foods, and I do think better. I mean, I think better, and that's the interesting thing to me. And I remember more things, and I feel better, and so I'm out there more. So I like what you're saying there is, and then like it's funny. Before I started Don't Die Rusty, I still listened to a ton of different podcasts, and it was in some of those podcasts, it's that one thing, like you might have said something right now that if it was me listening to this, I want to go study that. I want to figure out what could help me be better. And that's what started this whole thing. And then, because Don't Die Rusty is about it, I say it's wear out, don't rust out. Wear yourself out. But what I'm saying is, it's mind and body.
Yeah.
Keep your mind moving, keep your body moving, and go on those adventures and chase those dreams. But
Stay
and that's what's
engaged.
stay engaged.
Stay engaged.
Yep.
Right.
And what you eat is your lubrication, and and what you read and what you can do is keeping the things flowing. So stay engaged.
Right. Right. And I'm no nutritionist by any stretch of the imagination, but it comes up all the time with the people that I'm seeing. The number of individuals with ADHD, for instance, which has been so exciting. Like we've been able to write some grants for some ADHD groups, which has been just monumental to the people participating in those, because looking at the knowing is intact, but bridging that with the doing. right? Initiating things in a timely manner in a way that works. Many people with ADHD get so locked in on something that, oh, they didn't drink any water for 9 hours, or they didn't eat anything, and now they have this massive headache, and well, they just didn't even realize they hadn't. So meeting those basic needs. And I think when you look at the hierarchy of needs, I mean, we might remember that triangle from some classes that we took
Yep.
back in the day. And at the bottom of that hierarchy of needs, right next to air and water, is rest. Nobody's like, seriously, Rick, do you need to be just like breathing so much here? Is kind of ridiculous. No, nobody says that.
Yep.
Um, you know, rest is next to air and water. Well, we don't necessarily, especially where I grew up, nobody was like, okay, well, don't you think we need to be resting? No, we're gonna have lunch and then hit it again. And then, but prioritizing those brain breaks, so important with the people we're seeing. And it's not just important if you've had a brain injury or you have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You said sometimes
Yeah.
you need to not be around people. Well, that's where you get your brain break. You shift into a different gear. So being intentional about that, incredibly important.
And I have a question for you. So sometimes I take a sleep supplement. Do does that not let your brain clean, or because I'm not taking, you know what I mean? Sometimes I've heard different things from different people, like you can get a good rest, but your brain doesn't get a rest, or your body doesn't get a rest. You're asleep, but it doesn't clean. And you don't heal, we'll just say.
What I can tell you definitively, if somebody decides to have, X amount of beers and, they're like, oh, they sleep really hard. No, we cannot recommend that that's very helpful when we're talking about restorative sleep. Um, I can't make recommendations regarding medication or supplements. So
Yeah.
certainly something to, look into. But I will say I have many people that need to get in a sleep routine or a sleep pattern. And so for many people, that's sort of bridging that in between and is helpful to them. Again, lean on your provider who knows you best to kind of help you decide that. Um, but if somebody's not sleeping, having a medical provider or they're, someone's seeing a naturopath or whomever is helping guide that, um, figure out how you can get that piece ironed out because it's incredibly important, right? Some of the biggest, when I see people I'm working with, like I said, that any number of different kinds of brain injury or ADHD or MS, they're needing that rest for their brain to have a fighting shot at improving, period. You need that fuel source. I know if my car's on empty, it doesn't matter which direction the wind's blowing, I'm not making it home on that. It's not
No.
happening, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we don't think that same way about
No.
sleep or food or rest or it's not optional. It's not optional.
No, but I do think when we were talking about moving, like I am up at usually a quarter to 5 in the morning,
Yeah.
so I can do my walk before work because that is the best time for me to walk, except nobody will usually call you at that time because
Yeah.
nobody's up at that time.
Yeah.
So I go for my walk, if not a hike, but mostly in the mornings I go for a walk. And if you do that, go to work, by the time it's time for bed, you're ready for bed
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
so you can
Yeah.
start up new. And
Yeah.
then like I said, I take some other stuff, and when I need a sleep, I take a sleep from one of my friends' companies that I know. But I uh, I don't like taking things that make me feel groggy in the morning
Yeah.
because I feel that I didn't get a rest then.
Right.
I'm,
Right.
I understand you're sick. and you take a NyQuil or something, and you because you just want to sleep. But I I feel groggy in the morning, and I'm not looking forward to the day
Yeah.
to begin. I know that it needs to begin, but those are
Yeah.
the times I don't.
Yeah.
But
And
that's
the walking, boy, the research on that piece of it is just continuing to mount as far as how impactful and how helpful that is to people. And I did my own little pilot study on that. I get some migraines and um, was doing that every single day. And prior to that, I probably wouldn't have bailed out of bed with a migraine and gone for a big long walk with it being 10 below and the winds
yep.
whistling and whatever. um but I had decided one day, so if I vomit at home in my bathroom or I vomit in the trees behind my house, what difference does this really make? Really
You don't have to
true.
clean it up.
There's not going to be an audience. This is going to be fine. And turns out, even then, I felt better,
Yep.
right? I'm not a physical therapist, but the number of times that we're recommending, like, okay, what does your doctor say you can do movement wise? Oh, you're not safe to be walking outside by yourself yet? Can you walk for 5 minutes in your home? Okay. And we can do this 5 times a day? Okay. All right, great. We're moving in that direction. And giving that accountability and tracking, and people leave our office with some actionable things that they can do that help them to improve how their brain's functioning. And yeah, it's really exciting to see that person that literally couldn't get themselves out of bed and going and even do a 5-minute walk, or they couldn't take a phone call and be able to tell the person on the other side what they needed, and now they're back to working. It's pretty rewarding to see those journeys. And taking good care of our brain is incredibly important, whether that's you or me or someone that walks through the doors at my office here. And believing you can is big. I mean, science matters, and the treatment we provide is very much so following our expertise and education and that training, but really getting to know that individual and what matters to them, and how we get there looks different for every individual.
Well, I mean, I keep on going back, but it's really interesting because I think by listening to you and realizing people will realize, I think we get stuck that we're human and all of our brains are the same.
Yeah, yeah,
And we don't realize that everybody has their little, we have all have our little quirks and we all have our little, everybody's different. It doesn't matter if we grew up in the same family, we're still going to have different quirks than our brothers or sisters or anything
right,
like that. And when we start realizing that, we can start growing and saying that I don't need to be expected to be like my sister, or I don't
yeah,
have to be, uh, or whatever else, my dad, whatever else, because I am my own person, and
right,
you go in different directions, and so when you have a brain injury, you learn that, like you were just saying, we have different brains and we learn differently.
right,
We
right.
grow differently, we heal differently.
Yeah. And so the actionables to get there also look different, right? I remember
Yep.
um I had a professor that was coming in and doing some observing and doing some research of, patients of mine. And he was very much so looking at everything through a research lens, which is his role and responsibility. That's great. And I'm always looking at yes, research matters, science matters, but how do we get this person from A to B to C as readily as we can and meeting their goals? And what does that look like, right?
Yep.
Functional, realistic.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter to them or it doesn't impact their life in a positive way, we've missed the mark entirely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I had this gal with me who she had had a massive stroke, and she had what they called crossed aphasia. which they tell you you won't see very often in graduate school. They're like, oh, like you're not going to see this much if you do at all. Well, I had seen two people with crossed aphasia the first 6 months out. So I'm like, I don't know if this is just my Ree Heights uniqueness, or if this is what's off here. Anyway, so he's observing this because he's so excited to see someone with crossed aphasia in therapy, in motion. And it basically means that this person, because she was left-handed, that damage, usually like if someone has a left hemisphere stroke, they're going to be impacted on the right. Well, the opposite's true for people sometimes with handedness.
Hmm.
So she had a left hemisphere stroke, but looked like she had a right hemisphere stroke. And
Really?
so anyway, you'll have to look up crossed aphasia. But
Yeah.
so really neat gal. I was working with her, making huge gains. She was like, she ran her household. She was the make all the plans, keep the house going, get all the bills paid, keep her husband where he needed to be when he needed to be. Like she was the hub of this household. And it came to a screeching halt, and she was not having it. She was
Hmm.
so frustrated, so irritated. And we were getting her, and she was a classy lady. Like,
Hmm.
she would wake up and her husband was getting clothes put together, and she started the day very unhappy routinely because he had no eye for what went together. And then she'd try to communicate that with him. And he's like, excuse my expression, but he
Yeah.
goes, she's just bleeping pissed every day. And I come to figure out, okay, this is the problem because this is her
Yeah.
morning routine. This is how this goes, right? And so I have this professor in, and he's observing, and she communicates to me that he's picking out the wrong clothes, and she looks terrible, and she doesn't even match, and this is not what. But she can't speak more than a couple words, but she's
Yeah.
getting this message across to me. Thank you, Clayton, for the early training on on all of this. So we're working on how can she communicate what she wants to wear so that she's not looking at herself all day and she's furious.
Yeah.
The next person
Yep.
is like, it doesn't matter. She has clothes on.
Yep.
Yeah, it does matter. That
It
matters to
does.
her.
Hmm.
She's irritated with him beyond repair. She does not
Hmm.
like how right? It's chronically distracting. She can't
Hmm.
communicate her basic needs. And this is making her feel very much so not like herself. So after the session, this professor that was sitting in and doing all this research, he's like, well, I saw you were using, this theory and this approach. And he goes, and then I wasn't sure. And he goes, what was the approach you were using? I said, well, doctor, if A and B and C don't work, you better try D and E and F.
Yeah.
He's right, eh? But that's an important part for us to remember, whether it's in the treatment walls or not, is it might not fit in this nice box. It
No.
might not be the same thing as your neighbor does and what works for him or her. Might not be the exact same thing that even someone who specializes in that recommends, because that might be something that doesn't line up with you and your interests and your lifestyle and your brain and your body. So much of the work we're doing is also encouraging people to be a fierce advocate for their own needs.
I understand where you're coming from because I can see her confidence can be in your clothing. And if you're confident, then you're going to feel better. Then you're going to learn, then you're ready to take on the day. And I can tell you, I would not want to get my wife's clothes ready either
Yeah.
because I'm not, I don't, I don't think like that.
And he
I
didn't
think,
either. He did
you know
not
what I
either.
mean? So that is not, that's no. So I understand, but the confidence that comes with that, and I understand with you know, those bringing in clothes like when you're. I was told this when you're hunting. Like I hunt, I hunt a ton, but
Yeah,
what happens was if you're confident in how you anybody can go without camouflage or they can go with camouflage, whatever. But if you're confident in what you're in, you're going to be successful at what you're doing.
yeah,
And I can see that lady saying, I'm not confident, so I'm pissed all day long because I'm not confident. Now, when she became confident, you figured this out, she becomes confident. I would like to know, did she start gaining? Did she stop being so angry?
absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
know?
And a lot of people who, like she was talking or he was talking to his kids, adult children,
Yeah.
um, and sort of was leaving some pieces out. But, Janet's helping us get this clothes thing figured out. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, wait a minute. We're getting a therapeutic routine going, which means her daughter, who has similar taste, is coming every weekend and with her mom lining up these shirt and pants, these shirt and pants, this goes together. So when dad comes to the closet, he can go,
There we
right?
go. Yep.
Because she also felt powerless in it. She couldn't
Yep.
communicate. He wouldn't listen to her. And he was trying,
Yep.
but it was an epic fail because he just hadn't done any of that. So he went from, well, she picked out his clothes. So in fact, she was not
Mm.
only not happy about what she was wearing, she was also unhappy about what he was wearing. But what I'm saying is if you don't
Yeah.
listen to these people in your office and really think about how's their brain functioning, what's going well with their life, what's not, you'd miss that.
Yeah.
And pretty soon you have a lady who's really struggling. How many days, consecutive days in a row, do you wear something that you don't like at all before your mood's pretty impacted?
Oh, definitely. And then y- 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 I can see that, you know, it's kind of like also, I mean, I put things like when you're sick, say you have the flu in like 3 or 4 days, I'm tired of wearing sweat clothes or,
Yeah, yeah,
you know what I mean? You want to
yeah,
put on some clothes to feel better.
yeah. And
Y-
so there are lots of things that we're doing or addressing that, are addressing communication, are addressing attention and memory, are addressing how well does somebody plan and execute for their life. And no two people does that look the same,
No.
you know, and
Yes.
educating family members and supporting them in the process. I mean, the reality of it is whether I'm seeing someone with ADHD, or they have a concussion or a brain injury or MS or encephalitis, or maybe they've had a huge brain tumor removed and they're trying to get their life back on track to some degree. Um, if they knew what to do and how to do it, I believe most of them would be doing
And I believe that. And see, you've given me tons of questions actually, and I don't know how
it.
much time you have, so I don't want to keep you for the rest of the day, because I could talk to you for hours here because I'm interested in a lot of things, and but
I mean, I don't want to twist your arm, Rick, but you could have me back. We could talk about some other things,
how about
as
we do that? But first thing I want to say,
yeah.
because I think Deb will get to the end of this conversation is thank you, Deb, for my sister Deb says you need to talk to Janet. I told you that
Oh,
when I
that's sweet
first
of her.
when it got a she said, and it's also funny because I was in Sioux Falls and I stopped and talked to Leanne and Dale soon and Leanne said I want to listen to that conversation too.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
so people want to hear you talk, Janet. So I'm lucky enough to have you. You know.
Oh, that's great. I will say I'm fortunate in so many ways to have really great people in my life, friends and family, and our team here. I'm really fortunate, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Well, and I also think we could, when we were talking, and we'll talk about this maybe in the second one or third or fourth one we ever do, but I just see, I I live in Spearfish, but I'm proud to go back to Ree Heights. You know what I mean? And I just
Right.
see all this close-knitness stuff like we talked earlier, and it just makes me proud that you will talk to me and we have people out there doing so many different things from that came from this little area
Yeah.
that it's impactful on the world. And you're impacting people, and hopefully this impacts people, and we get to do the things we want to do.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
thank you
know,
for saying that, Rick. I tell you, I really truly mean, there are certainly days that are harder than others because I see people that many of the people I'm seeing are at one of the most difficult points in their life.
hmm
And keeping that in mind, that's something that never strays, right? Like recognizing that just because I've seen this many times, they're trudging through this for the first time, and it's big, right?
yeah,
And
it is.
so, there's not a day that goes by that I regret doing this work. I, love being able to provide the care that we feel good about, and having your own practice, you can do the right thing. You can provide excellent care and make a decision today that provides better care tomorrow. And you just, I'm not saying there's not huge systems providing really good care because that isn't true. But to have some control over how we can impact people's lives, you can put your head down at night and feel good about that,
Yep.
you know?
Because I've learned if I get a DM and if I've touched one person in any of these episodes I've done, if I've touched one person, that could be 10. So,
Yeah.
how many families have you touched by helping people communicate or whatever else that you're trying to do?
Yeah.
And if you can touch that one person, you've affected a whole family. Because it's that
Yeah.
one person in that
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
So that's
That
so
trickle
you
down is big.
it is. And how
Yeah.
do you know that that one person that you've affected and then the family, how do you know that family member isn't going to go do something good with what you've done?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
And
that's
that's part
awesome.
of, sorry to interrupt you there, Rick.
No.
Um, it's part of like the women's ADHD groups that we started, right? Girls and women are consistently diagnosed later than boys and men because the initial research was all done on boys and men. And no confusion that girls and women and boys and men are different.
hmm
So shocker, when the research comes out to confirm that ADHD presents different in boys and men than it does in girls and women, it's like, yes, 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 we know this, yes, in
Yeah.
all this long string of ways, yes, we know
Yeah.
this. But it leads to, really bright, talented women struggling, and then at a tipping point where like, this is not working, please. So the women's groups, the 10-week skill building, and it's a small group. So it's 4 to 8 other women. And, we're building skills and the confidence that comes with that. And when you're talking about it impacting a whole household, ADHD is nearly as hereditary as height,
Hmm.
right?
No, I
So
didn't
the
know that.
number of times where I have a 16-year-old in my office with ADHD and mom or dad or both don't have ADHD, we should be looking at least, right?
hmm Yep.
And so when you're having the mother of a household, build some skills that she hasn't been able to, and this entire household runs better, and she has a better understanding of, her 17-year-old that's driving her nuts because their brains are really similar. Like you said, it impacts the whole household. It's
Yeah.
just, I don't know, it's just been incredible. It really
Well,
has been.
well, when we get to the end of an episode, I ask one question. I'm going to ask you this, and then we'll see where we go. And we'll go out. We'll have more episodes to come with you. But my last question always is, what's the good life to Janet Grove?
I would say just being able to know that you can make a difference. Um, Enjoying my friends and family. Yeah, those are really, that the whole health and happiness piece of it, feeling like you can make an impact, right? Like you can have a positive impact on whether that's, one person or 100. That fills me up for sure.
Well, I love hearing that.
Yeah.
So I hope I can get some more free appointments here and
I would absolutely enjoy visiting again on whatever topics you find interesting that
well, you just gave me some
that
other
are in my
topics that,
wheelhouse. Yeah.
well, you gave me some other topics and I'm not going to say them right now
Okay.
and I
Okay.
will, but because we could go on for another hour, but I
Yeah.
wrote it down so the next time we talk, I can talk to you about this.
Circle
But
back to that.
when
Yeah.
when I finish here, I'll give you that topic and then maybe you can tell me. So
Okay. Okay.
anyway, I want to thank you so much for being on and being so gracious to speak with me. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you
And,
for having me.
and I just maybe we'll see each other in our little town of Ree Heights someday, passing through or whatever. But I just want to say thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. I sure appreciate it.
Yeah. So anyway, don't die, Rusty Nation. As always, keep chasing your dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die, Rusty. I want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Don't Die Rusty podcast. And if you would be so kind to give us a review, a like, a share, and a subscribe, that'd be wonderful, and I would greatly appreciate it. And if you would like to follow us on Facebook, we're at Don't Die Rusty. If you'd like to follow us on Instagram, it's at Don't Die Rusty. And if you would like to get in contact with me, it's rick@don'tdierusty.com. And I just want to say I appreciate everybody listening, and as usual, keep chasing your dreams, being the best you, and don't die rusty.